right. We're live. We're running. I'm seeing it coming in on YouTube. I think it's working on Facebook too. And it's 10 o'clock. So we are right on time. Here we go. Let's start this thing. All right. Welcome everybody to the first EdTech in the Bend virtual edition. I want to first thank South Bend Schools for sponsoring and encouraging us. My name is Seth Ponder, and I am one of the co-creators of EdTech in the Bend. And I want to thank you guys for watching and participating, and encourage you to join us by using the chats in the YouTube and the Facebook feed. And next, I'll hand it over to Stephanie.
My name is Stephanie Modlin. I'm part of the EdTech in the Bend team. We're excited to welcome Matt Miller to present Tech Like a Pirate. As you listen to Matt, please share using the hashtag ETITB20 on your social media. And we also encourage you to check Matt's website to buy his book for more great information. And now here's Matt Miller.
Yay. All right, Stephanie, thanks so much. Hey, everyone. It's good to see all of you this morning popping into the chat in YouTube and Facebook. If you haven't gotten a chance to do that yet, would love it if you popped in and just said, like, who you are, where you're from, what you do, that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Just like it says right down there. And so we'll be kind of popping those onto the screen so that we can see all of you. So super excited to get to interact with you guys today. And to talk about a topic that I think is very relevant right now, especially as we're still sort of uncertain on what this school year is going to look like with, potential remote learning or hybrid learning models. I know some people are already starting the school year online. And one of the things that I think is really has been missing from remote learning is that student engagement, that joy in learning, those fun activities, those things that keep kids wanting to come back. And I think that those can work really well, nicely, and together. And I've got lots and lots of ideas and suggestions for you when it comes to that. So we're going to be talking about all of that good stuff during the session today. Real quick, a little bit more about me. If you didn't know who I am, I taught high school Spanish for more than 10 years at North Vermilion schools and in Turkey Run schools. Right across the street from Turkey Run State Park was where my classroom was for several years. So, and so I'm the author of 4 books, including Ditch That Textbook and the newly published Tech Like a Pirate, which is what we're going to be talking about today. That's the idea. So anyway, let's just jump right into this. And this is fantastic, getting to see all of these names and all of these faces popping into the session. So hello to Marianne, hello to Laura, and hello to Pam. And I see Barb has popped in as well. And so hello to all of you, and it's good to see you. Okay, let's get this started, shall we? All right, so the beginning of this really starts with this book, which I just happen to have a copy of that you can see in my little thumbnail video right over here. This book, Teach Like a Pirate, by Dave Burgess. I'm curious to see in the chat if anybody's familiar with this book. Have you read Teach Like a Pirate? Have you heard of Teach Like a Pirate? This sort of shows you the brand of education nerd that I am, because when I got this book, it was in 2013. And I got this book, you ready for this? For my birthday. Like, I asked for a teacher book for my birthday. That's the kind of nerd that I am. Am I the only one out there that's like that would ask for a teacher book for my birthday? But you can see, I mean, I've gotten plenty of use out of it with the worn corners and the coffee stains and everything. But I remember reading this book, and there was one line in particular that just sort of like echoed in my ears for a long time after I read it, and it was this. So this was Dave Burgess writing, "Don't just teach a lesson, create an experience." And I remember reading that and thinking, oh man, create an experience. Yeah, this is the kind of classroom that I want to have. I want to be able to create an experience. And I realized that I probably couldn't create, a super memorable, unforgettable class every single time. But if that was the bar that I set, if I set the bar there and tried to reach for it every day, hopefully it would be better. And so I started brainstorming a bunch of ideas, like what might this look like in my classroom? And it seemed like every time that I came up with something new, it seemed to use the technology in my classroom. So I would think, oh man, this would be a really cool activity that we could use our Chromebooks for. Oh, I've got a handful of iPads. Oh, there's an app that would be perfect to go with this idea. Oh man, this would be really memorable if we used this one app and we used it this way. And I kept brainstorming all of these ideas to bring the technology together with the student engagement, those exciting, memorable things. And it seemed like all of those ideas kind of worked together. And I didn't realize it at the time, but back in 2013, when I started brainstorming, I was actually starting to write Tech Like a Pirate, which, back then I probably never would have guessed it, but now is actually in my hands. I've actually got a copy of it, which is pretty cool. And so within all of this, I think there's one central question that the whole thing sort of centers around. And it's this question: if class is forgettable, how do we expect students to remember? If they come into class every single day and it's the same old thing, we sit down, we do the same stuff, we read the same textbook and we go through the chapters in the same way and we answer the same questions at the end of the chapter, and everything is so forgettable, how do we really expect them to remember? See, I don't know about you, but whenever possible, I love to be able to create those unforgettable experiences, those unforgettable moments, those things that students are going to take with them and remember. And when I think back on my time as a student, I think about all of those, and there weren't a ton, sadly, there weren't a ton of them, but there are a handful of them. And the lessons that I learned along with it are the ones that stick with me because of those memorable moments. And so as I look at the ways that we can use technology in the classroom, I've been trying to think like, what are some of the main ways that we use technology where we can get that unforgettable learning, that memorable learning experience. Don't just teach a lesson, create an experience. And so these are the central ideas to this book that I wrote, Tech Like a Pirate. And that's really what we're going to talk about in this session. We're going to be talking about these 8 ways to tech like a pirate. We're going to walk through all of these ideas, and I'm going to share with you some practical ideas, some practical examples that you can use. Now, what we're also going to be doing is we're going to be watching the chat to see if everybody's got any ideas. So if I mention something and you think, oh, this would be really cool too, put it in the chat. Keep an eye on it. I'm going to shout some of those out. Okay. If I say something and you go, oh, I've tried this before, here's what I did, stick it in the chat and I'll shout that out as well. If you've got questions at any point, then definitely drop those in. Just like Debbie right here, Teach Like a Pirate is awesome and help transform my teaching. Boom, just like that. So I'm going to be kind of keeping an eye on that, and we'll be shouting those out during my session. So, okay. Let's keep moving. Let's go to the first one, which is social media and apps. So I know, obviously social media is a place where a lot of our students spend their time, and some of them are old enough to actually legitimately have social media accounts. Some of them are not quite old enough as far as the terms of service go, but that doesn't stop them from doing it. And even the younger kids are familiar with the social media that their parents have, and that their relatives or maybe even some of their friends and their families have. I remember when my kids were little and they started to realize what Facebook would do. If I took a funny picture of them, guess what they asked? Dad, put it on Facebook. And then what did they want to know later? What did people say about my picture? And then they wanted to see all of those comments. And that's very much the place where our students are living these days, I think. And if that's such a draw, if that's such a hook for them, then I'm thinking, could we use that in our classroom? Now, when I say, could we use social media in the classroom? What I'm not necessarily suggesting is that we use all of the social media apps in our classroom. What I'm suggesting is that maybe some of those social media have some irresistible features or some cool ideas that we could draw into our lessons to make them more engaging. So the big idea here is this: you don't need the app to create the experience. You don't need the app to create the experience. Because if we can pull in some of the best ideas and features from social media and infuse them into the lessons we already do or into new lessons that we want to teach, that can be huge. Let me give an example. Years ago when I was teaching Spanish, the big social media craze at that time was Vine. So I'm curious to watch in the comments if anybody remembers Vine. Do you guys remember this one? Did you use it or did you watch it? If you're not familiar with Vine, it was these 6-second looping videos. You would make a little 6-second video, and then when people watched it, it would play it, and then it would loop and start again, loop and start again. And there was some pretty hilarious stuff out there. If you're not sure what Vine was all about and you want to get the idea of what it was about, just do a Google search for Bat Dad. Yes, Bat Dad. Not Batman, Bat Dad. Just search for it. This was one of my favorite Viners. And so my students would come in and they would, Allison's familiar with it. Brittany's familiar with it. Okay, so we got a handful of you. Timothy's familiar with it, but hasn't used it. Jennifer remembers. Awesome. This is cool. People falling all the time. It's okay. Rachel remembers then. All right. This is cool. This is cool. So, when it was really popular, my students would come in and they would talk about all of their favorite Viners and the favorite things that they talked about. So one day I told my students, I said, guess what? We're going to make Vines. And the kids are like, nuh-uh, no way. They were thinking, teachers hate social media. Why in the world would they use this? And I'm like, okay, so we're kind of making Vines, but we're not going to use the Vine app. We made little 6-second vocabulary videos, and then they got to watch each other's videos. And of course, what did they feel like? They felt like Viners. And so that's when that idea really sunk into me. You don't need the app to create the experience. I used iPads and the camera, something that I had that students had access to recreate some of the cool features of some of those apps and social media that they love. And so how can we do that in our classes? For one, I've used a whole bunch of social media style ideas in some Google Slides templates. In fact, that's what you can see on your screen. That's what's been on your screen for the last couple of minutes are these Google Slides templates, which, by the way, you can also make in PowerPoint too if you want to do Microsoft. But the idea behind it was I was thinking, man, some of these cool features on social media, you could recreate it using a tool that students have access to. And so, that's basically what I did. For instance, if you look at the Instagram one, Instagram stories, I'll bet you guys are probably familiar with if you've got Instagram, you probably know about Instagram stories. It's basically where you add a little image and a little video to your story. And then another image, and then another image, and then a video. Like as many images and videos as you want. And if people click play on your Instagram story, they can just watch them. And then it's basically like a little custom-made video of your day made from those images and videos. I remember looking at that and thinking, oh, that would be a really cool formative assessment, way for students to demonstrate their understanding. But I thought, yeah, but some kids aren't old enough to have the app. And some kids wouldn't want to take their personal Instagram story and put my school stuff on it. And the grading would be a hassle. And there's a million that might be blocked at school. It's probably blocked at school. And so just looking at all of that stuff, I thought, what if we recreated that using a tool that we already have access to? And so I just rebuilt a version of Instagram stories. You can see it on the screen right there. I just used icons from the Noun Project. That's thenounproject.com is a place where you can get free icons. And I just set it up so that all of the slides could be little images and videos, and they could recreate that idea of Instagram stories. Did the same thing with TikTok. You can see a TikTok template on there, a Twitter template, a couple of Snapchat templates. So actually, if you want to check out these templates and maybe even use them with your students, you can go to my Teachers Pay Teachers page, and that's where you can, just kidding. Guess what? I don't do Teachers Pay Teachers. I don't do it at all. I just give you guys this stuff for free. So if you like the idea of any of these templates that you see on the screen, or really anything that you see during my presentation today, you can get it for free. So all you've got to do, and Stephanie, if you're watching this and you want to throw this in a banner, if you don't, that's okay. I think they can type it in. You can go to techlikeapirate.com. So that's techlikeapirate, TECH, likeapirate.com. And you can go grab all of these templates and be able to assign them to your students and do all of that for free. So anyway, feel free to go check those out if you want. And they might end up looking something like this. These are some examples that I found on Twitter of folks using some of those templates. So anyway, you get me kind of going on this one a little bit. Social media and apps. Ah, there it is. Nicely done. Very good. There it is. techlikeapirate.com. So I get going on this one because I think there's so much potential. So the big question I think you can ask yourself is, if students are excited about an app or if they're excited about social media, is there one little bit of it that you can kind of pull in and use for educational gain? And of course, you don't need the app to create the experience. Oh, this is a great example right down here. Jennifer says, I started using TikTok for my daily announcements and the kids loved it. I bet they did. And see, that's another cool thing about an app like TikTok is that if kids have it, if we make it an option, and Matt, I agree with this, Flipgrid fits in exactly with what I was about to say now. But if they've got the TikTok app, TikTok lets you record videos and then you can download them. And if you download them, you can always have students upload them to Google Drive and turn them into you. Or they can upload them to a tool like Flipgrid, and then kids are able to see it through a Flipgrid assignment. So lots of different ways that you can use some of these tools. It's really pretty cool. But I digress. Let's move on to number 2, shall we? So number 2 is about video. And it seems like in a lot of presentations like these, we talk about the tools and we say, oh, Flipgrid is really good for video responses, which it is. And we say Screencastify, yeah, you can, record video of your screen and you can flip through your slides, or you can do a demo, which you can. WeVideo is great for editing videos online. Spark Video makes it really easy to make quick, engaging videos. iMovie, that's the purple star that I still need to change Adobe Spark Video from. The purple star is iMovie. iMovie is on all sorts of Mac devices. Doing green screen is really good for making green screen videos so it looks like you're someplace else. And it seems like the conversation ends there sometimes. You can do all these cool things. Now go do them. And it leaves me asking a lot of times, yeah, but what do I do? What do I do with them, And a lot of times I think we go back to recording videos on these where it's the student, head and shoulders, direct to camera, talking to the teacher, or maybe talking to their classmates about stuff that they've learned in class. That's what educational video looks like a lot of times. And that's all well and good. And there's a lot that we can do with it, which is really cool. But there's more too. In fact, I want to propose to you a whole different way that we can look at recording these videos. And if you want to make your class an experience and not just teach a lesson, this is the kind of thing that you can do. And it all centers around this one question. This one question could change the way that you use these tools if you haven't thought about it before. Are you ready for it? Here we go. What's the lens we can see this activity through? What's the lens? Because a lot of times the lens that we see it through is, we're recording as if we were a student talking to our teacher because our teacher told us to about what we learned in class. That's the lens. That's the way that we're looking at this activity. So what if we looked at it through a different lens? Let me show you some examples. Instead of recording the video as if I'm a student recording for my teacher, what if we recorded it as if we were a news anchor reporting on the daily news. And instead of just talking about our content, now we're reporting it as if it's on a news program. Now, the other thing that's neat is if we're using a tool like Flipgrid. I know Flipgrid, for instance, does this. Whenever students are recording it, before they hit record, they can upload a picture onto the screen. And what they can do is they can put that picture, look at my little video image over here. They can put the picture right over here to the side and then move their head over here. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like a TV news anchor. You can even see in the little icon on my screen, there's that one little picture that has something about the report. And then they're going to sit there and they're going to read the news or, give the news to the audience. How about an on-the-scenes TV reporter? If they have a mobile device with one of these video tools on it, they could even do like selfie mode and act like they're out on the scene giving the report to the people watching at home. Horror movie style. This makes me think of the Blair Witch Project. Do you guys remember the Blair Witch Project from all of those years ago? It was basically a movie where it looked like somebody was using like a shaky camcorder to record the whole thing. But it was first person and it was supposed to be raw, almost like a mockumentary, kind of like The Office, like it was actually happening. And then you've also got the reality game shows, stuff like Cash Cab. If you've ever seen Cash Cab before, people get into a taxi cab and the host is the driver and somebody's got a camera in there and they ask them questions. And if they can answer enough questions by the time they get to their destination, then they get some money. What if you recorded, your students demonstrating what they know through the lens of Cash Cab or something like that? So I've given you a couple of ideas. And I would love if in the chat, if you have any other suggestions of creative lenses. See, it doesn't just have to be news anchor, TV reporter, horror movie, reality game show. It can be lots of stuff. Caitlin says, my kids used GarageBand to create music to accompany famous speeches. Ooh, that's a good idea. Many created a slideshow of images or acted out the speech as well. That's a good one. And then... music and social studies together, a little bit of literature. Yeah, that's awesome. So so let's let those comments come in for just a second. And I want to show you one more lens that this is one that I'm a little bit obsessed about right now. Because you see, I think another way to find a fun lens for video is to look at what's successful in other places. You could always look at TV shows. You could always look at commercials and get ideas, but you can also look at YouTube. And if you start looking at YouTube, you start to see that there are lots of types of videos that get a lot of play. For instance, there are top 10 videos and there are like tutorial videos and all of that. But there's one particular one. If we can switch me to full screen and not with my slides, then I can kind of demo this one on camera pretty well. There it is. Very good. The one that I'm talking about that I think could be used very nicely in class is this one. And that is the unboxing video. You guys ever watched an unboxing video before? So what's funny about these is that it's funny to me that they're even popular in the first place, but this is what it is. Somebody gets a box in the mail of something and they hit record and they say, check out this box. You know what's inside of it? I'm going to open it up for you and I'm going to show you on the camera. And then they open it up and they show you all of the fun little things that are inside the box. And so I started thinking, man, think about the kinds of unboxing videos that we could record with students. Again, in the chat, if you can think of any examples of this, feel free to throw them in there. But like, if we were getting a box from a historical character, what would they put in it? If we wanted to send a box into the future to tell our future selves, just remind us what life was like in the past, what would that look like? If we were in the past and we wanted to send a box to ourselves currently, what would we send? If we wanted to send a survival kit to somebody that we read about, or a survival kit about some sort of topic that we've been studying recently, what would we put in that box? And if we start thinking about it that way, this can be a lot of fun. And then, of course, what do? We start recording a video and we say, okay, in this box, I have a box from myself to myself in the future to help me remember what life was like back then. And so, oh, look, I wrote myself a note. What does this note say? And this is a nice part that you can put into the unboxing videos, is have a note that describes like the kind of stuff that you've got in there, or maybe as kind of like an introduction. And you just read that introduction at the beginning, then you start pulling things out. And so it could say, Dear Matt, this is a box of things from the past, from what we're using right now to help you remember what life was like before. Very thoughtful. And then you start pulling things out. Oh, wow, look at this. Do you remember when we used to use these things to navigate our computers, or we could use them to move things around? Now, obviously, we don't use that because all we do is just use, optical scanning technology, and we just use our eyes to move things around. But those were the days, right? Oh, wow, look at this. Do you remember these old cameras? Okay, I didn't actually use one like this, but they used to use these cameras to take pictures. And now all I've got to do is just use my glasses and wink, and it takes a picture. But those were the days, right? And you just start pulling things out of your box and you start talking about them. And of course, the ability to talk about them and make commentary about them, that's where kids can really demonstrate understanding. Fun stuff, right? Okay, so let's look at some of those comments real quick. Seth's saying you can do an unboxing with rocks for science class. Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, check this out. I got a box of rocks. Let's see what's in here. Oh, this one's this and this one's that. Jennifer says maybe students could record an unboxing to introduce themselves for virtual meet and greet. Yes, I love that. Stacy says artifacts, trying to establish location, roles, time periods. Definitely. Deborah says different scientific processes and parts, like carbon dioxide, glucose, oxygen, ATP, energy. And if you've got stuff to pull out of there, and you know what, even with this one, if you don't have glucose and ATP energy just sitting around your house, you could always draw some representation of it on a piece of paper and cut it out and pull those out and just show them to the camera. That totally works too. What else have we got? Beginning the year introductions, like memoir boxes. See, I think this could be especially important for remote learning, especially if you're starting the school year remotely. I know lots of teachers all around the United States and around the world are concerned about this. And they're saying, how am I supposed to build relationships with kids I've never had in the classroom before? And I think there's probably no perfect way to do that, but I think that's one way that we could definitely get to know those kids a little bit better, is to, have a box. This is like a box of me, showing different things that are important to me so that we get to know you a little better. Kiko says unboxing videos would be great for science. I'm thinking a box of toys and explaining the physics behind how they work. I love that. Yeah. Let's do a couple more of these. Just a couple more, because I'm seeing there's a bunch of them over here. You can even use unboxing to learn new vocabulary. Definitely. I think that would be fantastic. And then let's do one more. If we've got one more, opera or musical, pieces that relate to key characters or plot items, the composer. These are all really good ideas. I love this stuff. Man, you all are on it this morning. This is fantastic. So, okay, very good. So let's keep moving. Let's put those slides back up on the screen. Still working through my first cup of coffee. Can anybody relate? You still working through that first cup of coffee? I know I definitely am. Let's talk about games for just a second, because I think that we all love a good game. And there are lots of different versions of games. And the nice thing is that some of the most compelling parts of games can be pulled into our classroom as well. And of course, what's fantastic is that we have examples. We have models that we can follow from some of the most popular games if we'll just look at them and learn from them. Because you got like console video games like Xbox and PlayStation. How about Fortnite? Have you heard of Fortnite before? Obviously, there's something that draws kids into Fortnite. I think that maybe it's the real-time collaboration. Maybe it's the fun graphics. It's a variety of things. Mobile app games. Do you remember when Pokemon Go craze was going? I know lots of people still play Pokemon Go. I don't play it anymore, but a lot of people do. You got board games, role-playing games, playground games, even retail rewards programs like those Starbucks rewards. Let me tell you about those Starbucks rewards for a second. I don't even like Starbucks coffee that much. But if I have the chance to earn some stars to get some rewards, I'm going to go drink Starbucks. In fact, my family and I just went to Kings Island yesterday. Like, we just got back like late last night. And of course, you know, there were the masks and the social distancing and all of that stuff. And Starbucks was still running. And my daughter wanted some sort of like, you know, sugary Frappuccino drink. And I got something too. And you know why? Because I was close to earning something on my Starbucks rewards. So there's something to it, right? So we could even look at programs like that, like those retail rewards programs, and think, man, if we could offer points for students doing things that we want them to do and then give them rewards, and it doesn't even have to be things that you buy. It could even be like privileges in the classroom. If it's face-to-face, it could be, they could be the first ones out the door to lunch, or just, you know, little things like that. So there's lots and lots of inspiration we can use. In fact, I wanted to tell you real fast about one from my own classroom. This was an Olympic year, and it was the end of the school year. We were getting ready for final exams, and I wanted to not just teach a lesson, but create an experience. And so when we were getting down to time to do final exam review, instead of just saying, we're going to do 3 or 4 days and we're going to, you know, do some flashcards and maybe we'll play a Kahoot game. And I turned it into the Olympics. It was like Spanish class Olympics instead. So some of the stuff from it you can see on the screen. I had the leaderboard. So I put the class into 3 different teams, and each team was like a country. And if they were first place, they got the gold medal. Second place, they got silver. Third place, they got bronze. And we kept a leaderboard. And so you'd get certain points for certain medals that you would win. And we would play a review game each day, Monday through Friday, for all 5 days. And at the beginning of class, whenever the bell would ring, here's what I would do. I would play the NBC. I don't know how well you're going to be able to hear this. I'm going to crank my volume up. You remember the NBC Olympics music? See, to me, whenever I hear this song, memories from the Olympics start rushing back into my mind. And so as soon as the bell rang, I would click play on that. That would be the first thing that they'd hear right after the bell rang. And so that was even more to create an experience. Music, leaderboards, playing games. We played games like Kahoot or Quizzes or Quizlet Live. We even played a game called Trashketball. I bet some of you know about Trashketball, don't you? You got your trash can and a ball. And if the team answers the question right, they can shoot for extra points. They can try to shoot from different lines on the floor or something. This was my attempt to create a game based on something that I knew that students were interested in at the time. And so it doesn't have to be anything super flashy or exciting or anything, but sometimes when we add these little experience elements to it, you know, some of these little, fun ties into pop culture or things kids are interested in, it can really transform that learning experience. So, Trashketball is the most popular Indiana classroom sport, as it should be. I mean, you know, we're all about our basketball here in Indiana. So, you know, why wouldn't Trashketball be? So, oh man, love it. Love it. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's go to number 4. So number 4 is all about collaboration. Kids love being with their friends. They love talking to their friends. I think at some point during the K-12 experience, hanging out with your friends and what your friends think of you and what you do with your friends becomes the most important thing in their lives. And so, of course, if we can get connected with our friends and do some stuff in the classroom, that can be very memorable. And I bring up what's on your screen right now, the digital gallery walk, because I think sometimes whenever we do collaborative work with technology, it doesn't recreate the collaboration experience that I want to bring students. So sometimes whenever we do digital comments or we work together in the same document or something, it's still a lot of screen time, still a lot of sitting, still a lot of quiet, no like eyeball to eyeball, face-to-face conversations, no, none of that stuff. And so here's what I propose on that. This is just a little thing, especially if you're in a face-to-face classroom. It's the idea of the digital gallery walk. And the digital gallery walk is this. Let's have students create something digitally, a slide presentation, a video, a graphic, whatever. They pull it up on their screen. And then as soon as it's up on their screen, on their device, on their desk, they stand up and then they go walk around the room and they look at each other's devices, just checking things out. If they've got a video, they click play on that person's video and they watch. They go, ooh, that's kind of cool. And then they go on to the next person's. So by doing that, it does a couple of things. Number one, they have to actually interact with other real live human children, which is something that I'm a big proponent of, actual face-to-face conversation. Crazy, right? And you're not talking to somebody with your thumbs or Snapchat of the top of your forehead. I still don't understand why they do that. The other thing that's neat about the digital gallery walk is that it builds in an opportunity for students to present. So look in the top right-hand corner of my little graphic here. Imagine this. We have a pod of students, 4 students here. And so what we can do is we have one student's computer right here. And then this student that's kind of standing off to the side is giving a presentation about what they just did. And they can ask themselves, you can even give them a handful of questions that they can work through, or little like sentence stems. Stuff like, my process for creating this was this. The thing that came easiest to me was this. The thing that was hardest and the most challenge was this. If I did it all over again, I would do this. This is what I really learned from it. And if they just go and answer those questions, they present to their peers and they have to reflect on what they've learned. You can have them present for a minute or maybe 2 minutes. And then what do they do after they're done? Rotate onto the next person, rotate onto the next person, rotate onto the next person. If you put in groups of 4 and you do those rotations in the matter of 4 minutes, or if they're 2-minute presentations, 8 minutes, you could have every single student in your class have presented to 3 other students about their process. Actually look to eyeball, face to face with these kids and talk to them about it. And then, of course, they're getting up and moving around too. Cognitive science tells us the importance of standing up and moving around and not sitting. I read somebody wrote recently, excuse me, that sitting is the new smoking. Have you ever heard that before? Sitting is the new smoking. Like, it's so bad for our bodies. It's bad for our brains if we can get kids up and moving around. This is obviously going to be a little more of a challenge with social distancing and everything. But it's definitely something that I think we can emulate to some extent, or at very, very least, we can file it away. All right. We have any comments about this one? I'm starting to see some stuff that has been coming in. So let's see. Caitlin says, love this. I do gallery walks all the time. This would be a fun way to change it up. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of infuse some of those techie things that kids are doing. Amy says, I love the idea of the digital gallery walk. I'm going to try this with my students. Very good. All right, cool. All right, good stuff. So let's keep moving, shall we? This is the part of the presentation where I like to pause for a second, because sometimes, I see folks, or I talk to folks who see me talking about doing this fun stuff in class, trying to engage my students, trying to make learning memorable, unforgettable learning experiences. And they go, this isn't really serious learning. You want these kids, you want to just like jump up in front of these kids and like goof around all the time and like all of this fun and silliness, everything. This isn't serious learning. What we need to do is we need to get down to business. We need to get kids working. We need to get to work. They need to sit down. They need to do the work. To which I would say, you know what? Actually, research backs up this kind of engaging, memorable learning. Let me give you some examples. For one, there's this book called The Happiness Advantage. I just happen to have it right here. The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor. And in his research, he has found that we are 31% more productive when our overall being is at positive, not at negative, or not at neutral, not at negative, not at stressed, but at positive. When we are at positive, we're 31% more productive because our brains and our bodies don't perceive a threat. And so we're working at full capacity. So how about that? right? Looks like I'm not the only one who's with this. I'm like talking about some people that say this isn't serious learning. Timothy in the comments is like, to which I agree with you, Matt. I love that. That's awesome. Let's go to another one, shall we? This is a neuroscience study, and this one says emotional events. Now, these can be very strong emotions on any part of the spectrum, from happiness and joy all the way down to like fear and pain. Let's talk about happiness and joy, shall we? Emotional events often attain a privileged status in memory. Whenever we do something that's tied to one of those emotions, it's like right at the top of our memory. It's like right at the top of the stack. It's easy to recall. And I guess I just talked about, positive emotions. It could also be sadness for a character. It could also be, feelings of injustice, like if people are being mistreated, or if there are, inequities or unfair treatment of people. That anger can bring up those emotions, and then those can stick too. So really any of those emotions, if we tie to any of those emotions, privilege, status, and memory. Here's the last one. I really like this one. This is from the National Institute for Play, based on several long-term studies that they're monitoring. And they say play-based learning with playful teachers, I love that part, heightens overall long-term performance. This is what these studies are pointing to, is that if we're willing to engage in play-based learning with our students, and that goes from the littles to the bigs, even with adults, I would argue, with playful teachers, if the teachers are willing to be playful and engage in it, heightens overall long-term performance. Love that stuff. I love Tara's comment down here. She says, high school students definitely need to have fun that is connected to class and move around, or else they will look for fun on their own that is not connected to class. Right, exactly. And so if we can make that connection in our classroom, we have something that's memorable. And then Jennifer says, if you think of museums, learning that's engaging, you are actively learning. This should go hand in hand with classroom learning. I totally agree. Now, if you look at Jennifer's comment and you go, museum style learning that is engaging, active learning, and you go, I can't do that every day. That's too much. I can't do that all the time. Guess what? You don't have to do it all the time. Just like what I was saying earlier, when I read Teach Like a Pirate, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to make an experience every single time, but that was the bar that I set for myself. And anytime I could, I would reach for that bar. Sometimes I would clear it. A lot of times I didn't. But because I was thinking about it, it led to more engaging classes. So you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to hit it on the head every single time. But if that's the bar that we're striving towards, then that's huge. All right. Let's talk about images for a second. I love incorporating images into the class because they're very brain friendly and they're fun. Let's talk about the brain friendly part for a second. Dual coding theory tells us that our brains process images in a different way than we process text. And so if we're able to put images and text together in what students create, or if we can put images and text together in what we teach with, our brains process the images and the text, and it's kind of like a double whammy. Like we're getting double the stickiness for long-term learning. And so a couple of fun ways to bring in images. Number one, how about memes? My 8th grade, soon-to-be freshman daughter told me once that she and her friends communicate through memes. I thought, wow, we need to do something with that. And so there are lots of meme generating tools out on the web, but my favorite one to use is just a simple Google Drawing or Google Slides, and just do like one slide. You put a picture behind it and you put a couple of text boxes on it, and that's it. And if you want to make it look like a legit meme, the traditional meme font is Impact. And Google and a lot of other platforms and devices and everything use Impact as one of the default fonts. So you just change the font to Impact and you change the color to white. And boom, you got a meme. And my case for using memes in the classroom is this, that if you can take a general idea of something that students have learned and they can boil it down to 2 lines of text, that's brevity, That's also synthesis, synthesizing ideas down to something very basic. And then if you can incorporate humor, I mean, humor means that you've seen what you just learned and you've noticed some like inconsistencies or incongruences. I think I made some words up there. You can see where it's incongruent with what we do today or what we think or whatever. And there's humor in that. If you can do that, that's higher order thinking, I think. Here's another one I wanted to share with you. Oh, and by the way, with all of this image stuff, if you see any of this, or again, anything you've seen in this whole presentation, I have resources on that Tech Like a Pirate website that you can use to get templates for it and to be able to learn more about it. There are tutorials, there's videos, and all of that stuff. Oh, Stephanie is on it with the crawl at the bottom of the screen. I'm impressed. Okay, so also with images, how about infographics? I love how brain-friendly infographics are because you've got a little bit of text and a little icon, or a little bit of text and a little image. And they're actually super easy to make too. In fact, I've got an infographic template that you can use, again, at techlikeapirate.com, that I call them icon boards. I just came up with a name for it. I thought, it kind of looks like a board. It's got a bunch of icons on it. This infographic template is done in Google Slides, which you could also do in PowerPoint, of course. And so here's the slide. The white rectangle you see is the slide. Now, what makes this kind of a cool template is that I've taken a bunch of the things that students might need to create an infographic, and I've just sprinkled them in the gray space around the slide so that they're easy and handy and ready to use. Because if you want students to find their own icons or their own pictures or whatever, you can lose them down the rabbit hole for a whole bunch of your instructional minutes because they're just looking for that perfect picture or that perfect icon. Let's just stick some of them in that workspace around the slide. That workspace isn't part of the slide. It's not actually part of the finished product. They're just sitting there waiting for the students if you need them. And so what would this look like? Oh, and PS, techlikeapirate.com. There's a link to the icon boards. I've got several different versions of those infographics templates if you want to download them and just assign them to your students. So if I get a blank icon board, I'm going to pull one of the numbers over. This is going to be like one of those top 10 type of infographics. So you can, on all my examples, these are the kinds that I really like to make. If I pull a number over, I pull an icon over, I add a little bit of text. And then guess what? I do it again. Add another number, add another icon, add some text. Then I put 3 here, 4 here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's like 2 on top, 4 in the middle, 4 at the bottom, and I leave a little bit of space for a title. Just draw in some big text, throw a little icon to go with it. Boom, infographic done in a matter of minutes. So that's a fun way that you can pull images and text together and make something. See, I think this would be a really neat alternative for standard essays and research reports and all of that. And again, it's brevity, it's summarizing things. Good stuff, right? Okay, let's keep moving. Let's go to number 6. Oh, wait, I see a comment in here from Deborah, and she's back to the unpacking the box idea. There's a strategy to zoom out from an image and have students try to determine what it is and change their thinking each time. Oh, that's cool. I like that idea. Tamala just said we really could use an icon board with our virus safety procedures. Yes, you could. That's a good point. And then Stacy says, I love these icons, simplifies the whole process to make the actual work time more meaningful. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to show you the site where I got all of these icons for free. And I know I think Seth threw this into the comments, so I appreciate him doing this. It's thenounproject.com, thenoun, project.com. Over 2 million curated icons created by a global community. And you can download, oh, there he goes again with that link. Thanks, Seth. And you can download these icons and use them in your work as long as you are willing to cite your source. So for instance, you can see in my slide right here, you can see at the bottom, I've got my little citation information on each of these, and they walk you through how to do that. So yeah, you can use all of those for free. Pretty cool. Okay, Let's get going on to number 6. I got 6, 7, and 8 still to do, and I've only got about 10 minutes left, which is fine, especially since all of the resources are at techlikeapirate.com. So if I hustle over something that you think would be fun to use, you can always go right to that website and get resources on it. Exploration. I feel like this one is kind of a key to being a pirate because, they say that pirates, sail the 7 seas looking for treasure and exploring and everything, going to uncharted territory. I think if we can make our learning a little more like that, exploring uncharted territory than just being spoon-fed all the information you're going to need to know, it can make it much more of an experience. So you might ask yourself, what can students go discover on their own instead of being directly taught by me? So when it comes to exploration, you can obviously use, a web search to go explore and find information on your own. But I think another place that is ripe for the picking on this is exploring geography. There are some really cool map tools out there that let students explore the world around them without leaving their homes or without leaving their classrooms. For instance, Google Maps Street View. So in Google Maps, on the web version, there's a little yellow peg man that you can drag onto the screen and drop him onto the screen. And it shows you what life looks like down on the street. And so when this refreshes, you're going to be able to see, it's this little yellow guy down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And you just drag him. There we go. We're dragging him onto the screen. We drop him on one of those blue roads or one of those blue circles. And you can see what life looks like down on the street. This works really all over the world. Not every single place in the world, but all over the world. So the question may be, if we're studying a location, could something like Google Maps Street View give students a new perspective of what it looks like to actually live there and actually be there? The other thing that's cool about Google Maps Street View is that you can drop yourself into buildings too, which makes it almost like an on-demand virtual field trip. The one that you see on the screen right now is Alcatraz. So you can look inside of the cells. You can actually go up to the posters and zoom in on them and read the text in them too, which is really cool. So it really does make it almost like an on-demand virtual field trip. And then the other one that I love is Google Earth because it has this neat 3D mode. If you hold in Shift and you click and drag, you can tilt your view so that it looks like this. We talked about don't just teach a lesson, create an experience. What if you have it look like this and you tell students, instead of, hey, we're going to take a look at New York City, let's tilt the map like this in Google Earth and let's tell them, we're going to take a helicopter tour of New York City. Because this 3D view, whenever you tilt the view like this, it kind of looks like a helicopter tour, And so then you go fly around New York City. Try not to accidentally crash into something. Just fly carefully. Okay. So Google Earth and Google Maps Street View can definitely let us do that, which is cool. Global communication. Oh my goodness. I could talk about this for a whole hour because those video call tools that some of us are using in remote learning situations or, in webinars like this one, those video call tools can connect us to people and places and classrooms all around the world. And so we can get our classes connected to other classes so that they can share their learning with each other and learn from each other's perspectives. We can also get our kids connected to virtual guest speakers so that they can learn from those people's expertise and experiences within their lives. But then we can also do virtual field trips. And we can take kids places in live video calls like zoos and national parks and museums and different places like that and have like live virtual tours. Guess how much all this stuff costs? There's some that do cost, but there's a lot of it that's for free. So for instance, my friend Mike Soskell that you can see on the screen right here, his students got connected with a class of kids in Nairobi, Kenya, just so they could practice for their choir performance. They had a choir performance coming up that week and they wanted to sing for someone. Mike got them a class in Nairobi, Kenya to sing to. But then Mike's students learned more about these kids in Nairobi, Kenya, and they learned about how unsafe their drinking water was. They started a fundraiser raised thousands of dollars alongside several other classes, and they bought water filters for these kids and flew Mike out to deliver them. It was the coolest thing. Now, you don't have to like buy thousands of dollars of water filters and fly to Kenya to have a positive experience with video calls. For instance, my friend Todd Shriver, who's from North White Schools, somewhere in the Lafayette area, so not like too terribly far from South Bend. He taught this class called The History of the 80s, which first of all is kind of messed up in my mind. I don't know about you, that there's a class called History of the 80s. I was like, oh my goodness, I just lived the 80s and they just happened, you know? But there are no textbooks for the history of the 80s. And so he just started reaching out to people who were popular in the 80s or who knew what life was like there. He just started bringing them in on video calls. So, he brought in Malcolm Jamal Warner from The Cosby Show. He brought in some of the original MTV VJs, the video jockeys, when MTV was still all about music videos. He brought some of them in. And even on the screen, you've got Mike Eruzione, the captain of the U.S. men's hockey team from 1980 that won the gold, defeated the Russians, Miracle on Ice and all of that. He comes in and talks to that History of the 80s class every single year. And all of these people met Todd's students just because Todd asked, just because he reached out and asked. He got a lot of no's, but he also got a lot of yeses too. So it never hurts to ask. And my favorite place to find classes to get connected with and virtual guest speakers and free virtual field trips. By the way, all this stuff on this website is free. Free, free, teacher's favorite price, free. Free 99, right? Is to go to skypeintheclassroom.com. Whether you're using Skype or not, this is the best place to get connected with people to get your class connected with. So global communication, I could go on and on and on about that one. And then there's an eighth one. This one actually doesn't appear in my book. In the original manuscript, I wrote this as the 8th chapter, but it ended up on the cutting room floor because I had too much stuff in the book. And they were talking to me about brevity and how I had too much stuff. But storytelling, I believe, some of the elements of storytelling are the glue that hold all the other 7 together. And if you want to heighten the experience for any activity, if you understand the basics of storytelling, you can tell a good story. And if you can communicate clearly, this is the kind of stuff that can really help. So I included that 8th chapter instead of just throwing it away. I put it on my website. Guess what? techlikeapirate.com. You can go read that chapter right now if you want to. And some of the activities that are in that section include the caption this activity, which you can use to help students put themselves in the shoes of a historical character or of someone they've read about or whatever. And then there's photo comic strips where the students become the stars of the stories and they get to tell stories too. Again, techlikeapirate.com is where you can find all of that. All right, so let's wrap this up real quick. I've shared a lot of stuff with you so far, and you may feel like this. Overwhelmed. Now, I heard a definition of overwhelmed that has been really helpful to me, that I really appreciate, that I thought I'd share with you right now. See, being overwhelmed isn't the problem of having too many options. It's not knowing where to start. So if you can find a place to start, that can empower you to actually get started and move forward. So where do you start? Let me give you a couple ideas. Start small. Start with something that makes you go, you know what? I can do that. You accomplish it. It gives you momentum to move on to the next thing. Starting small is powerful. Start with impact. Ask yourself, where could students benefit from improvement? Improvement in me, improvement in themselves. Maybe that's where you start. And how about passion? Start with passion. What are you excited about? What are your students excited about? But I think any one of those places is a fantastic place to start. And so, that kind of wraps it up there. That's it in a nutshell. I hope that you've gotten some useful stuff. I tried to kind of make sure I got through all of the rest of it there at the end. And hopefully some of that has been useful to you. And again, techlikeapirate.com is where you can go to find any of those ideas. But yeah, don't be overwhelmed. Start small. Find something you feel like you can do. Just pick it out and go get it.
Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks for your presentation. And thank you everybody for being a good audience and all your comments along the way too. Don't forget that our video is going to be left on YouTube and Facebook for the next couple of weeks. So if you missed something or want to re-watch something or even share it with your teaching buddies, go ahead and do that too. Enjoy the rest of the EdTech in the Bend today, and we have other good presenters ahead too. Thanks again, Matt.
Thank you so much. It was great to hang out with everyone and fantastic comments. Just like Stephanie said, you all are great. Have a great, great school year. Thanks so much.
Thank you.